Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off our session on how resiliency is the heart of Trusted Cloud Foundation. I am Molina Sharma, a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Microsoft, and along with me, I have Gargi Banerjee, who is a Senior Product Manager at Microsoft. And together, we will be taking you on this journey. Let's start with a quick show of hands of how many of you have ever experienced a downtime that has impacted your business or your customer's business. I guessed it. It's a very common challenge, and today we are going to explore on how Azure empowers organizations to build secure, scalable, and AI-ready solutions by design, where resiliency isn't just a technical goal, it's a business imperative. Now, let's pause and reflect on why trust matters. As our CEO says, Satya Nadella, security and quality are non-negotiable. Our infrastructure and services are mission critical for the world, and without them, we don't have the permission to move forward. What this means is that think about the trust that is being placed by organizations such as hospitals, banks, and government agencies. If we don't have their trust, we don't have the permission to move forward. Security and quality aren't just the side initiatives. They are our license to innovate and to lead. And this isn't just about meeting expectations. It's also about earning the right to innovate, to lead, and to grow together in this world. Now let's break two key concepts that are often interchangeably used, but they are quite distinct: reliability and resiliency. Reliability is about setting expectations. It's the system's ability to constantly deliver what the business needs are day in and day out under normal conditions. Whereas resiliency, on the other hand, is about how well we respond when things go wrong. It's the capability to recover from disruptions and keep the services running with minimizing downtime and data loss. Think of reliability as the promise that we make to our customers, our partners, and the resiliency as the way we keep that promise, even when things are not under our control. Reliable solutions also unlock growth and reduce competitive risk, whereas resiliency ensures that we deliver these on promises, even when unexpected things happen. Now that we have understood why resiliency is important and what does it mean actually, let's take a closer look at some of the main customer challenges that we have encountered or our customers encounter when they are building cloud infrastructures. The first and the foremost is shared responsibility confusion. There is often a confusion about who owns what. And let me clarify that today. Microsoft guarantees the reliability of the cloud platform itself, but our customers are responsible for the reliability of their own environment and workloads in the cloud. And this gap can mislead in lots of planning and execution meetings, especially when the roles aren't clear, right? The second one here is early stage prioritization. Resiliency isn't always introduced as an early strategic conversational step. It's not discussed upfront, where customers may miss an opportunity to design for business continuity from day one. The third one that we have come up with is lack of awareness of risks. As you know, many organizations underestimate business impact of downtime. Therefore, there is loss of revenue, loss of trust, and increased upfront costs, right? So because of that, the risks and the underlying issues or implications that come are critical, and they are missed while they are making informed decisions. The fourth one in this list is absence of measurable metrics. I think customers often struggle with validating their resiliency posture. By that, what I mean is there are no clear KPIs to define RTOs, RPOs, or even uptime SLAs. So this, in that word, I think it gets very hard to measure the progress or to demonstrate the value of resiliency to key stakeholders, right? And the last but not the least here is inconsistent best practice adoption. I think resiliency frameworks and checklists aren't always applied consistently across teams. There is always like, implication that can lead to critical gaps in actually protecting their workloads or environment. So as you have seen from these 5 challenges, resiliency is just more than a technical feature, it's a business enabler. And by addressing these challenges together, our customers can protect revenue, maintain trust, and also ensure their business continuity. Now that we have understood what resiliency is and what are its challenges to our customers, I think we have to come to a good news, which is that you are not facing these challenges alone. Microsoft provides you with secure and reliable foundation for you so that you can build and design and deploy your workloads in a way that will address the priority of the resources in the cloud for your customers. By that, what we mean is we look at building and optimizing your cloud environment and workloads as a shared responsibility. So while Microsoft manages and optimizes the core platform and also ensures the reliability and the security of cloud itself, you are responsible for optimizing your environment and reliability and security of your services in the Azure environment. Microsoft offers you various services that will ensure that your workload meets the standards of governance, security, high availability, backup, and disaster recovery. These become your responsibility, and the fact that we say that is because not all workloads have same functional requirements. Different partners, different customers, different requirements. And that's why it's a shared responsibility. Microsoft also provides you with best practices. And by that, what I mean is there is cloud adoption framework for cloud governance. There is well-architected framework for design guidance. There is also Azure Advisor that will ensure that your application follows an optimized set of resources under cost, under reliability, under other operational risks and stuff. But then the most important thing in regards to the announcement that has happened in Ignite is the unified resiliency platform that will give you a visibility into the resiliency tools and features within the Azure portal itself. And I will let my colleague Gargi show you in the next section of this presentation on how do we enable all this and what are the amazing features that we have launched. Now that we have understood the challenges, the meaning, and a little bit on how this is a shared responsibility, I think it's very important to understand the stages of resiliency. As resiliency is a journey, right? It's not a one-time fix. We understand that you would need us at every stage of this journey. And by that, what we mean is you start resilient by embedding the resiliency into new workloads by day 1. By that, what we mean is whether you are migrating from an on-prem or from any other cloud to Azure, there has to be resiliency from day 1, which will be including your designs, your blueprints, your reference architectures, which are aligned to best practices that will be given to you by Microsoft. Then, after you start resilient, I think you have already come into Azure, and that's when you think about modernizing your data platform, your AI applications, and all that stuff, right? So how do you get resilient if you're already in Azure? By addressing these gaps into your existing environments and leading customers through multi-zonal or multi-regional adoption journeys, you can convert these findings into targeted remediation plans. And this will be shown to you in the next part of the section, how we can do that in detail. And then there is also a component of stay resilient. That lifecycle stage is for all the customers here who are already in Azure. We ask you, we request you to always stay resilient. And by that, we mean implementing continuous validation and improvement cycles using telemetry and partner resources to enforce resiliency posture across your environment, across your workloads, whether it's data, security, AI, infra. Now that I think we all have come to a conclusion and understanding that resiliency is a journey, you start by embedding it in new workloads. You get resilient by remediating and optimizing existing systems, and then you stay resilient by continuous validation, monitoring, and improvement. With that, I hope you see how resiliency is not just a technical checkbox in your list. It is a strategic advantage, and it's a shared journey between you, partners, customers, and Microsoft, right? With that, I will hand over the mic to my colleague Gargi, who will take us deeper into how we put these principles into deeper actionable items for your data and workloads in the Azure portal itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Molina, for establishing why resiliency is a strategic priority for not only customers, but for Azure itself. Hi, everyone. My name is Gargi. And for the rest of this session, I'm going to take you deeper into what resiliency means and how you can be resilient on Azure, right? Now, let's take a step back, right? I think all of you have either heard of or have been affected by a business disruption, right? It could be an outage, it could be an attack, but I think all of you fairly understand what it means when your business operations come to an absolute halt, right? With that, what we've realized over the years, like Molina was pointing out, that resiliency is not anymore a technical checkbox, right? It's now elevated to boardroom conversations. You know, it's what keeps CXOs up at night, right? And therefore, we as Azure understand and acknowledge how resiliency is important for you to ensure your businesses run absolutely on track. If I were to describe resiliency in a few words, it would mean resiliency is what keeps your cloud always stay on, right? Now, from an Azure standpoint, we are committed to providing you a resilient foundation, right? And there are multiple architectural best practices and strategies that Molina has already spoken about. But what we've also understood and learned from our customers is that while there's a bunch of best practices that are already present, implementing that in action and understanding where you stand in your resiliency spectrum is an ordeal, right? And therefore, what you see on this slide is that we are heavily investing in shipping resiliency features and tools to help you view, improve, assess, and manage your entire resiliency lifecycle, right? The screen that you see on the screen, the sort of image that you see on the screen is the newly launched resiliency portal that we'll be going in depth in one of the sections as we go through the session, right? Now, what you can expect from the rest of the session is to really understand the what and the how to be resilient on Azure. Okay, let's switch gears a bit, right? When we think about resiliency as a concept, I think it's a very broad, overarching concept on Azure, right? And what we're trying to do today is form a frame of reference for you to assess and understand how you think about resiliency, right? And we're going to do that with the help of the three-pronged approach of the three pillars that you see on the screen, right? And our understanding is if you're protected against all these three pillars, you have a holistic resiliency strategy. Now think about this scenario, right? You're suffering an outage. What are some of the top questions that will plague you, right? What has caused this outage? Is it a data center attack? Is it a cyberware attack? Is my data protected? How soon can I recover that data? Is my data safe, right? Now, all these three pillars, as we go into the details, will help you really understand how you can ensure that all of these questions are not only answered, but you can proactively protect yourself against all of these different situations. The first pillar that you see is called data resiliency. By data resiliency, we mean that your data is recoverable, available, and complies with all regulatory standards that are important to you, right? Think about capabilities like backing up your data. Think about things like having the right retention as per regulatory standards like an ISO 27001 or a GDPR or a HIPAA. Think about ensuring your data has the right RPO, RTO. All of those concepts are what are covered under the data resiliency pillar, right? Data resiliency ensures that your data is bulletproof against any sort of unforeseen event. The second pillar is called the infra resiliency pillar, right? Now that you've secured the data, the second thing that you need to secure is your Azure infrastructure. Again, going back, and possibly I'm reiterating, while Azure does give you all the strategies, right, things like high availability, zonal resiliency, regional resiliency, different customers have different needs for their workloads and their requirements, right? And therefore, the customers have to ensure that they modulate their resiliency strategy even for their Azure infrastructure. So everything infrastructure lies in the second pillar. The third pillar is, again, some might call it an orthogonal concept, but it is also a form of disruption, right? with the rise of cyber attacks, the ransomware threats that organizations have been receiving, in today's session as the third vector, we will be focusing on the recovery part of cyber resiliency, right? Now, cyber resiliency as a concept goes beyond recovery. We understand that it also has other security aspects, but there are dedicated sessions for that. For today's session, we will be focusing fairly and squarely on the recovery aspect, right? Now, with these three pillars, what we are going to do in the upcoming sections, take a look at real-life demos and follow the journey of our favorite organization, Contoso, and make it real for all of you on how these can be implemented for your organizations as well. Now, before we move on, what Molina iterated in terms of a life cycle, which is your start, get, and stay, applies to all of these pillars. So you start with your data resiliency, you get data resilient, you stay data resilient. But due to the paucity of time, what we are going to do today is take a look at one pillar and one life cycle axis to ensure that we follow the example thoroughly. Okay, now let's take a look at data resiliency. Now think about Contoso, right? Contoso is a retail organization hosted on cloud, has their e-commerce operations operating on Azure, and therefore they have a bunch of data, right? Think about customer information, inventory data, and so on and so forth. So John, who's the application owner of their cloud-native payments application, has to come up with a strategy to ensure that their data is resilient against any outage, right? And therefore, John comes up with the data resiliency requirements, which is how long the data should be backed up, what are the RPO, RTO, and then meets Mark to ensure that the BCDR admin goes ahead and implements these data resiliency configuration. Now, if you see on the right side of the screen, this is a representative diagram of a cloud-native architecture. For the purpose of this example, let's assume that the microservices tier is hosted on an AKS cluster. Think about the payment application where you have the API calls, you have the auto-scale capabilities managed by the AKS cluster, and then you have all the transaction details, right? That is managed by the PaaS database, which is your ADLS Gen 2. Now, Azure has its first-class product called Azure Backup that lets you seamlessly back up both your microservices tier as well as your ADLS Gen 2 storage layer, right? When you back up AKS using Azure Backup, you get all the goodness of vaulted backup, which means you have an isolated air-gapped copy, you have cross-region restores, you have security capabilities like immutability, CMK, and the likes, and we're going to take a look at that in a demo shortly. Similarly, even in the cloud-native space, Azure Backup is making large strides to ensure that we have expanded coverage into your entire landscape, right? Which means with ADLS Gen 2, this is a net new release where we are ensuring that we also help you back up your cloud-native databases. And this too comes with all the goodness that you see in your vaulted backups, right? And includes zonal and geo-redundant stores, along with the unified backup and backup monitoring and governance. Now, tip one for the session today is ensure that you configure backup for your critical applications from day one and not as an afterthought to ensure that you're resilient with respect to your data. Now, let's move to the demo. All right, as you can see, this is an AKS cluster. We've gone into the cluster details. We will load the namespaces, and we will show how you can actually back up a namespace. For this demo, we will look at the web app namespace. You go to the backup left nav. This opens up your backup screen, and then you can just click on plus backup to ensure you start backing up your Kubernetes service. You select a backup vault. You can create one, but for the purpose of this demo, we'll select an existing vault. And once the vault is selected, you quickly go through all the details around your subscription and location and all the other details, and then you click on next. Post the basics, you go ahead and select your backup policy. This workload has both operational as well as vaulted backup. And then I go ahead and select the data source that I want to back up. I will provide a backup config name, and then I will go ahead and select one of the namespaces in this cluster, like I said. You also have additional filters that can help you optimize your backup granularity as well as hooks if you want application consistent backup. Then you go ahead and click select. And we'll then do a quick validation to check that the person configuring the backup has the right role access control. If yes, you click on next, and you configure backup for this entire cluster, in this entire namespace. Okay, as you see, the backup has begun. Now, with this, you have your microservices tier fully protected by Azure Backup. Now, we'll also take a look at the ADLS Gen 2 backup. All right, so this is pretty much similar, but from a data source perspective, we first select Azure Data Lake Storage. Then we again go ahead, select the backup policy. This has vaulted backup only with a retention of 10 years. Then you go ahead and select the granularity at which you would like to back this up. And once you've done that, you go ahead and click on Next. You again go ahead and select the data sources. One thing I'd like to call out is for ADLS Gen 2, we are allowing cross-subscription backup, so you can actually select different subscription. There's an additional filter. You can go ahead and select the storage account and also select the containers within the account to backup, right? So that's the granularity that we give. We'll select both for the purpose of this demo. And then we go ahead and do the rollback access control check. And once that's done, we go ahead and configure backup. As you can see, the backup is now in progress. Now with this, John and Mark have ensured that Contoso's data is fully covered, right? Now let's move on to the second aspect, right? Now Contoso has been on the cloud for a while. Alex, who is a cloud architect, understands that while their newer applications follow all of the strategies that Azure provides, some of their older applications do not have things like high availability and zonal resiliency configured for her application estate. And therefore, what we're going to take a look at in the next demo is hot off the press zonal resiliency experiences that we've launched in Ignite. We are extremely excited to come up with these set of curated experiences that cover your entire resiliency spectrum, right? We'll quickly take a look at the demo, and then I'll take you through what each of the steps entail in the scenarios.
Contoso Mart, a leading e-commerce firm on Azure, faced disruption caused by an outage in one of the data centers. Despite having access to Azure's guidance, implementing it proved challenging. Limited visibility, generic guidance, and complex deployment plans made it difficult to act decisively. To overcome these challenges, Microsoft is introducing Resiliency in Azure, a unified solution that surfaces high-impact risks. You can now view the resiliency posture of your entire landscape, including critical resources and service groups, and drill down to the details of non-resilient resources that have key impact to business and cost. The Resiliency platform also provides targeted architectural guidance with recommendations powered by Azure Advisor. In this example, the recommendation outlines how to make a PGSQL server zonally resilient. Deployment of recommendations is simplified with the help of AI and Copilot. With a few quick inputs, Copilot generates detailed deployment scripts to help achieve zonal resiliency that can be run at users' convenience. You can also validate your resiliency posture by proactively conducting drills enabled by Chaos Studio faults. With real-time metrics and attestation reports, this process links planning with proof by testing failure scenarios and recovery. Come explore Azure Resiliency with us.
All right, what you saw was just the tip of the iceberg. What I'm going to attempt in the next 5 minutes is take you through the different aspects of the resiliency journey that we are trying to cover and ship with the curated, stitched experiences that you just saw in the demo, right? Now, the first thing that you saw in the demo is your ability to view the resiliency posture, right? What I mean by view are at-scale views that you saw, where you have those views on the resiliency portal dashboard, where you can see the resiliency posture of not just your resources, but also service groups. Now, service groups is a new construct that Azure has introduced. It's a tenant-level construct that allows you to model your real-life applications on Azure for better management and governance, right? So if you've configured a service group, or if you have not as well, right? As soon as you go to the Resiliency portal dashboard and log in, based on your role and access, you will be able to see the zonal resiliency posture of all your resources, where it says, hey, X number resilient, Y number not zonally resilient, right? So the first part is viewing your posture. Now you've viewed your posture, you want to go ahead and also understand and assess in depth what that means, right? So that's the step 2. The step 2 is ensuring that you're able to go and click the resiliency drift and understand what exactly the resiliency drift actually entails, right? If you remember the demo, once you clicked on the non-resilient resource, you were routed to a recommendation details page, which is powered by Azure Advisor, that comes with key information on what it takes to make that specific non-zonally resilient resource zonally resilient, right? So if you think back on the example that we had in the demo, it was a PG SQL Flex server that had to have 2 steps implemented in order to become zonally resilient. First, it required a SKU upgrade, and second, it required replication of a standby server in a second zone, right? So your recommendation details will tell you what to do, what is the potential benefit, what is the cost impact, and therefore you can not only assess why you're not resilient, you can also create a strong business case or have an ROI analysis of whether or not this is required by your organization. So step 2 is assessing your resiliency posture. So now you've viewed, now you've assessed. The third piece naturally is how do I fix it, right? And we've heard a lot of feedback from a customer that implementing a zonal or any other resiliency upgrade takes a lot of work, right? So there's deployment complexities, there's downtime, there is a bunch of unknowns that are there when you do such a change. And therefore, to remove that level of ambiguity, what you saw is AI-assisted deployment, wherein Copilot will generate you clean scripts, right? For in this examples, you saw 2 scripts that clearly outlined at an individual step level what does it take in terms of cost and how much downtime, which means you can then go ahead and deploy those scripts at your convenience, right? So you've viewed, you've assessed, and you've remediated or improved your resiliency posture. But Alex still has this nagging feeling at the back of her head that am I really zonally resilient? Because once an outage happens, there's no going back, right? So she really wants to understand, how do I test this, right? And she also has this priority to ensure that she runs drills every 6 months and provide attestation reports on how those drills went. So that's the fourth and a very interesting and unique feature that we are shipping as part of our zonal resiliency capability, and that is the drills, right? What drills does is it allows you to simulate an outage in a controlled environment with the help of Kiosk Studio faults, right? So you can inject a fault, bring your VM down or bring your server down, and then see whether it comes up almost with near zero RPO, RTO in the secondary zone, right? Now, once you've done that, you can also export attestation reports for your audit purposes, right? So if you take a look at the entire resiliency journey, what we've tried to do is ensure that with the help of self-serve experiences, without removing all the fragmentation, you're able to view, assess, improve, and validate your resiliency posture. This whole loop, links planning with actual proof, which gives you not only recovery confidence, it also gives you the ability to sleep well at night, knowing that you're covered for zonal outages, right? So the tip 2 for this session is ensuring that you leverage the newly launched zonal resiliency experiences for your mission-critical apps to always stay on. Now, if this is something that was interesting to you, I highly recommend that you take a photo of this QR code. We are right now in gated preview, so we need some signups to be enrolled in the preview. And very soon, we will be launching this in public preview. We also have a breakout session, Breakout 148, deeply focusing only on this area later in the day at 3:30 p.m. in Marriott Marquis Ballroom. So highly encourage all of you to be there if you have the time, right? I'm going to give a few more seconds for folks to take the photo. Okay. Now moving on, right? Now Contoso has fixed their data problem. They've fixed their infrastructure problem, right? But there's also another key area that Contoso has to focus on, and that is to ensure that they secure their data on an ongoing basis from any cyber or ransomware attacks, right? And that's where comes the last section of our session, which is the stay resilient piece with the cyber recovery piece, right? Now think about Mark. Mark is a SecOps admin, and Mark has been tasked with the difficult task of ensuring that all of the critical VMs of Contoso are not only backed up, but they also can proactively be protected from any ransomware attack. And for that purpose, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a demo that takes you throughout the end-to-end journey on how you can back up a VM, ensure that your backed up VM has the right security controls. So we will discuss some of the known capabilities like immutability and soft delete. But what we are also going to see in practice is, again, a very exciting launch at Ignite. It's called the threat detection capability for Azure Backup, right? What we've done is we've gone ahead and integrated with Microsoft Defender for Cloud, where you can proactively understand the health of your restore points, right? So that's an exciting feature. We will take a look at that demo, and then I will provide more details on what that means. All right, as we know, backing up a VM is simple and seamless. You go to the resource plate, you go to backup. You can, again, this is a recovery services vault because this is traditional workloads. You can go select the resource group and then go ahead and select the policy type that you would like to implement for this specific VM. Okay. When you try to go ahead and see the policy, we have granular backups for VMs going down up to 4 hours. We have various retention flexibility around weekly, monthly, yearly. And what we're also releasing are agentless VM backups, so you can go ahead and also configure crash-consistent backups, if you may will, for your needs. Okay, once you've done that, once you've selected all the disks within the backup, this VM is now ready to be backed up in a recovery services vault. Now, before we move on to the threat detection capability, I just wanted to cover what are some of the key security capabilities that comes along with configuring backup in a recovery services vault, right? So we have capabilities like immutability, so nobody can delete your data. We have soft delete capability, which we'll go in detail. We have multi-user authorization. We have private endpoints. We have confidential management keys. And then obviously the recently released threat detection capability, right? Now, all of these come together to ensure that you have backups that are secure at all times. Now, for this vault, we see that the security level is excellent. Its immutability is already enabled, and threat detection is also enabled for this vault for specific VMs. Now, let's go and look at the VMs that have been configured with threat detection. Now, if you see for this specific VM, you see the recent scan status which says no threats found, so there are no vulnerabilities for this VM. However, for the second one, you do see a status called suspicious, which means that there was a detected vulnerability that was identified by Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and we have taken the signals to ensure that you understand since the point in time from which suspicious backups have been taken. You can actually go back to a clean backup that was marked as healthy and recover it to ensure that your backups are leading to a healthy recovery point. Now let's go down into the threat detection capability that you recently saw, right? This is a net new capability, like I said, where Microsoft Backup is integrating with Defender for Cloud. So if you have an MDC license and if you're an Azure Backup customer, it's a fairly simple setup, right? It's a one-click setup that ensures your backup are linked to the MDC scanning. And what we do is we ensure that we integrate signals from the source VM scans to tell you which restore point based on the time of the signal are healthy and which are malicious, right? Now what that does is when you have an actual cyber attack, most of our customers, right, typically go to their backups to recover to a healthy data, right, to go back in time. Now with this, you have the granularity at a restore point level to go back and identify which of your backups are healthy, for which you can come back and recover with confidence even in the event of a cyber attack, right? Now this has been launched in public preview. It is across a few regions, as you can see on the slide here. And this is something that we strongly urge all of you to try out to increase the security of your backups. So tip 3A for this session is to ensure that you enable threat detection on your backups for proactive protection and safeguarding against ransomware attacks, right? Now, another feature that you may already be aware of is a soft delete, but we've actually increased the coverage of it, so I wanted to cover it a bit. So soft delete is a feature that allows your data to stay in the data plane even if somebody has done a hard delete from the portal, right? So say you've had a malicious delete or even an oops delete, like a fat finger delete, right? While that will come out grayed out in the portal, what that means is the data is still there, protected and in the backend if soft delete is on, right? Now, with the strides that Azure Backup is making in the secure by default space, soft delete is now available for free for 14 days across all the resource types that we protect in both recovery services vault as well as backup vault. What that means is whether or not you opt for soft delete, it is already enabled, right? And this is what we want to ensure because we are strongly committed to ensuring that you're secure by default on Azure, right? We also have the capability to increase the soft delete duration to 180 days at a certain cost. And therefore, the tip 3B of our session is to ensure that you enable soft delete on your backups. For critical backups, please go ahead to 180 days to ensure that you're covered against any accidental deletes or malicious deletes, right? Okay, now before I move on, if any of the topics that I talked about, right, in the data resiliency or the cyber recovery space was of interest to you, again, we have a session which is Breakout 146. I will flash the details in the end tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we will go deep into these two pillars in that session. So highly recommend you to go ahead and sort of explore that session if you have the time. Now, just summarizing all that we sort of saw in the session today, right? Now, like we started with Molina's session where we said you can start, get, and stay resilient on Azure. Resiliency is not a one and done thing. It's a continuous ongoing journey, right? Where all of you have to consistently understand, upgrade, and keep the resiliency journey in tandem with the innovations, especially with AI, right? It's become even more important because with AI, what has happened is the vulnerabilities in your data are at a scale that are unprecedented, right? So it's imperative that you ensure that your infra, cyber, and data pillars are all tightly working together to make you resilient across the board, right? Now, what we've also understood and heard from our customers, especially our enterprise customers, that we need different modes of consumption, that customers need different modes of consumption. So we are committed to providing all of our capabilities and offerings, not only from Azure Portal, but we will ensure that we have all of these integrated into our agentic Azure Copilot agent, right? I will briefly talk about the resiliency agent post this. And we will also ensure we have infrastructure as code like PowerShell, CLI, Terraform resources exposed for all of these resources, right? Now, again, Azure Copilot, when we talk about Azure Copilot as a construct for resiliency specifically, when you go to the resiliency portal, you will be able to invoke the resiliency agent, have a conversations with the resiliency agent, and the resiliency agent will guide you not only for your infrastructure resiliency, but also things like data, right? Like you can go ahead and tell the resiliency agent to understand backup estate and go ahead and deploy backups, right? So all of that will also be integrated in the resiliency agent holistically across your data, infra, and cyber. So again, encourage you to go ahead and explore that, right? And so finally, with the key takeaways in the slide, I would also like to say that if you're a customer with any bespoke needs, custom needs, and need some help to go deeper or understand about your resiliency journey, please feel free to reach out to Molina and her team, which is the Azure Accelerate team. They are a trusted group of experts that can actually help you go deeper on the start, get, stay piece, and also guide you on what is the right resiliency strategy that is aligned to you. Okay. I'd like to now flash up some of our recently launched capabilities. What you see on the right-hand side of the screen are the capabilities that were launched in the recent past, right? That goes across infra, data, and cyber. And what is launched in the past 6 months is on the other side of the slide, right? And what you'll see is in the infra resiliency space, we've taken large strides If you're aware, our team also owns a product called Azure Site Recovery, which is a DR product, and we've launched some very cool capabilities there where we are now increasing the churn limit to 5x of what is there today. We are also going to provide capacity guidance, right? So Azure Site Recovery essentially helps you fail over and fail back. So when you're failing over to another region, we actually now give you guidance on whether capacity for that particular SKU is available along with alternate SKU recommendations. So that's a pretty cool feature that we've launched. I also spoke about the data resiliency pillar where we've launched EDLS Gen 2 vaulted backups. And in the cyber recovery space, we briefly covered the threat detection as well as the vault soft delete, right? So there are some resources, there are some QR codes on this slide. Feel free to go ahead and access them. This will also be available in the offline version. Coming to the last slide of the session, these are some of the related sessions that we have that we have exciting sessions that we're coming up. Breakout 148 is today, 3:30 to 4:15 at the Marriott Marquis Ballroom. Please go ahead and attend that if the zonal resiliency experiences were of interest to you. Breakout 146 goes deep into data, cyber, as well as the resiliency agent that I just spoke about. That's at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And we have another lab at 4:30 p.m. today that allows you to have a hands-on experience on the start, get, stay resilient pieces in practice, right? The zonal resiliency experiences. With that, I'm going to be leaving you with this slide. You can take a photo. This again talks about the resources we have around Azure resiliency and reliability. Feel free to explore them and reach out to us if you have any questions. All right, thank you so much. You've been a lovely audience. Thank you. We'll be outside if you have any questions. Thank you so much.